Well, welcome, everybody, to another edition of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck. And that, of course, means some smart talk radio is in your future, and this segment is no exception. We're going to be talking to Bobbie Brown, and we're going to give you a little bit more of a setup here in a minute. But the world of rock is one I love for sure, and it's one that always is filled with intriguing stories it's entertaining. There's a little rock and roll. There's a little sex. There's a little partying. There's a little bit of everything. Our guest, Bobbie Brown, one of the best known of the rock wives, so to speak, and rock women from years ago, and still is our guest. She's got a new workout called Dirty Rocker Boys, Love and Lust on the Sunset Strip. She has done many things, not the least of which was starring in the iconic music video for the band Warrant's Cherry Pie video, overnight sensation there, but we'll let her explain a little bit more about that. Bobbie, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. How are you?
You know what? I think we're doing well here. I'm always intrigued and love talking to people whose career is formed around and has a connection to the world of rock. Let's do this. Let's do a little bit better setup for our Lewis at Large listeners here. Tell them originally where you're from and when you decided to migrate to Hollywood. Tell us about that, the early years.
Okay, I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and was in the Miss Teen USA pageant. I was Miss Teen Louisiana, and, my mom had always wanted me to be, a model of sorts or something like that. Like, she was a stage mother, kind of, and so I did the Miss Teen USA pageant, and I was in the top 5. They asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said a model. Had calls the next day in my hotel, and prepared to move out when I graduated high school to California, and that's exactly what I did.
Let me ask you something. When you first got to L.A., big, scary, or really not at all, and you loved every minute of it?
It was a little scary, I have to admit, but I loved it. It just felt, really comfortable to me. My mother hated it, but to me, I just was fascinated, and it just was okay with the fact, just like, see you later, Mom, and just moved here, immediately, and got with an agency and just kind of, went from there, but never for one moment was I like, screw this, I got to go back home.
In the early mid-'80s, MTV comes on board. The world of music videos explodes all across the country, around the world as well. Warrant, this incredible band, with this incredible video for Cherry Pie. You are the star in that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But how'd you get that job? Tell us about that audition.
Well, I was on Star Search at the time, and I guess Janie was on tour with Motley Crue, and him and Tommy saw me on the show, and Janie decided to call his company and tell him that that's who he wanted for his next video, and that's what they did.
Well, and again, when we refer to Janie, we're talking to Janie, of course, who was the lead singer at Warrant, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, let's okay. So now, you meet those guys. You're sort of gently moving, but pretty steadily towards that world of rock, and in particular, the world of a harder edged rock and a harder edged world of rock. And tell us what that was like to you. My guess is to you, instead of being a little bit scared, your eyes got pretty big and you got pretty excited. Yeah,
I was always excited to book any job. First of all, because that was what I was here for, and it was kind of cool, but, MTV was such a huge thing back then. And so, I was very excited to do any video or, anything like that. But definitely, I didn't really know who Warrant was when I booked the job.
Right.
But I was happy to do it either way.
Well, okay. All right. So the video comes out, and it's very popular, and particularly as music videos go. I'm curious, immediately, Bobbie, what did you notice? How did your life change after that?
Completely. It's because, first of all, I was shocked to see how much I was in the video, if not as much as the band or more. And that was kind of unheard of. And then it stayed like at number 1 in heavy rotation for 6 to 8 months after that, which gave me incredible, being in the public eye. And it just was nuts, people were recognizing me on the street and screaming, Cherry Pie, at the window out of their cars. And it was kind of crazy, So then I get this, unearned ego a little bit. And, things kind of start landing in my lap. And, that's when I start to freak out a little bit. That was the beginning of my freak out. But, I definitely enjoyed every second of it, that's for sure.
I want to read, let's dive into the book again. And chapter 1, it is called Cock of Ages. And I want to read the first paragraph. What?
Okay.
Wait, what happened? Last week, Tommy Lee was my fiance. This week, he's married to Pamela Anderson. It was February 1995, and in the aftermath of Tommy's shotgun wedding on the beach in Cancun, 4 days after our breakup, my coping strategy was twofold. And the first one was get high. Get high. Take us back to 1995. Tell us what Bobbie Brown was all about at that moment, and tell us a little bit, if you would, what led up to that breakup between you and Tommy Lee.
Well, okay, so where my head was I was devastated, completely in shock. That was 4 days after, our final breakup, and we were engaged, and now he's married, so I can't even comprehend that, at all, and I can't go anywhere. There's press everywhere, following me everywhere. I can't escape it. It's in the tabloids. It's on the TV. It's just like a constant stab in my heart, and not to mention the play-by-play I was given by his friends from Cancun telling me about it. I thought it was a joke, like just to hurt my feelings. I didn't realize it was really true, and so of course, I'm not trying to feel these things. I don't want to feel any of the pain that I'm going through. So what do? I turn to the one thing that will keep me from feeling, and that's drugs. So I got into it really heavily because I'd used periodically before that to lose weight, for modeling here and there, but I always had it under wraps. But at this point in my life, it was about to take a turn for the worse because of how devastated I was. And that's exactly what happened.
The second chapter, or the second thing of the two things you were supposed to do, was to get even. Tell us about that.
The get even part was I really wanted to, it wasn't wanted, it just was out of my pain or my anger or my bitterness. I just decided I was going to, start treating men like they treat us and flip the script on, men and women's situations or perspective and kind of just be the dude. And, that's what I did. Can you hold on for 2 seconds here, babe? All right. Okay, so can you hear me still?
You bet.
Okay, so that's what I did. And it was pretty crazy, but, I would take a guy home and whatever, and, be like, okay, here's some money for a cab, time for you to go. And they'd be like, wait, what? Like, yep. And then I would never speak to them again or something, just crazy. But, I was so trying to fight the pain I was feeling that, I kind of became a bitch, I guess.
Let me ask you something. Any concern about STDs at all during that period for you?
How funny. I'm going to have to say no. Because, the funny thing was as many attempts that I would have had to have sex with people, I was such a one-man freak show because of my addiction that it always turned out pretty horribly, like something went awry usually, and that's what led up to all these great stories in the book. But at the time was like, a fiasco.
Take us again, you mentioned the addiction. Take us into that and tell us about how that affected not only, you're talking about your relationship with guys, but how did it affect also your professional ability to get work and your ability to relate with your family? Well,
of course it affected me in every way negatively. I lost an incredible amount of weight. I was too thin, like so thin that, if I did get a booking, I would show up to the job and they'd be horrified at how thin I was, and they couldn't fit into the clothes. And plus, not to mention, my ability to be on time or prioritize things were skewed. Couldn't do that. I was pretty much a mess, and or I would show up to the job completely screwed up and unable to work, or be completely, just completely non-caring and, a bitch or not easy to work with. It just affected me in every way. And of course, it affected me, my family and friends and such. Affected me in every way,
Was there ever a thought to leave that environment, leave LA and either go back home or go someplace else that might have a little bit more of a laid-back existence, or was the need to be there still too important for you?
Well, I did that many times. I would, go home, get it together, get myself together, come back, try again. My poor daughter, in the meantime, as a mother, I thought always the best decision to make for her would be to, send her with my mom when I was, off the wagon or not doing well or whatever, because I never wanted her to have to endure those things, which was a good decision because she's turned out wonderfully and great. But, you can't ever get back those years, and that's a big part of my life that I have a lot of regret and guilt about to this day, and makes me sad. But, I just, that's basically it. Like, it was a lot to have to live with myself, Again,
if you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio, some smart talk radio rolling along here. We're talking to Bobbie Brown, absolutely an iconic figure, particularly as a result of her role in the rock band music video by Warrant called Cherry Pie. Sort of an overnight sensation. She would probably say that not really. She was probably working her tail off trying to get all kinds of work, but that is the one that put her on the map. Subsequent career in and out of relationships, addiction, I hate to say is somewhat typical, but certainly not atypical. Bobbie, look back on all this stuff, and in the book, because there's some great stories in there, but is Bobbie Brown today the person you were before you came to L.A., or is it sort of a blend of everything?
Wow. I've never over the years have I became, completely lost who I was in my heart, I never really became a bad person, or regardless of all the things that I did, it never really changed me at the core. But I have most definitely learned from my mistakes and made amends with those things and come full circle. I mean, there was a large period of my life where, I was clueless and homeless and penniless and, without my child and, jobless, and just didn't know what I was doing with myself or my life and where was I going. And, everything built revolved around my looks and it was just a complete confusion. And finally I just said, I'm either going to break and be done, or I have to pick myself up, let go of this regret and this guilt, and just forge ahead and prove myself before I die, or I'm just going to be miserable for myself and my family, and I can't do this. And so that's what I did. I just I decided that snap out of it and do something. I went back home. I went to school. I went to STDs school for a backup plan, just in case, my plans to do this wouldn't work out, have a second chance, and just to fall back on. Went to school, and then that's when my dad and my stepdad died. So I freaked out, came back out here, and then slowly but surely, clawed my way back for a second chance, and finally got that second chance, and super grateful every single day of my life, happier than I've ever been that, now, here I am talking to you about the book idea I had 4 years ago and on a reality show that's doing really well, and just super at peace with all my life experiences and everything that I've done, and grateful. That's just basically it. So it's a comeback tale, really.
Let's dive into the book here a little bit, Bobbie. And I want to talk about the relationship, again, just in the interest of time here. I want to talk about your relationship with Tommy Lee. In the summer of 94, you fly out to meet him. He's on tour in the Midwest with Motley Crue. You guys go out to dinner after the show, and he asks you to marry him. Tell us about that moment, and tell us subsequently from there what happened.
Well, I was ecstatic, of course. He proposed, and, beautiful ring, the whole thing, called my mom, all excited, and, we had a plan for a future together, and unfortunately, he was a possessive, type angry person who, didn't have a hold on his temper at that time, and, I had grown up in a household that was abusive, so this was the last thing that I was going to do for my daughter, regardless of how in love I was with this man. And, things just got worse in that area and, ended really horribly. And I had to end it, And then that's when he, married Pamela. But I couldn't be with a man who was going to be physically abusive to me in front of my daughter because I wasn't going to do that,
Bobbie, did you know Pamela Anderson? Did you know her before all this or during all this?
She had introduced herself to us one night and was kind of making an effort to be my friend, but ultimately I felt like, after and at the end of it, that it was really to get his attention. Really had nothing to do with me. I could be totally wrong, but that's just how it looks. So really, it was just she was an acquaintance more than anything. I had worked with her on Married with Children, but we weren't, friendly. We weren't unfriendly. But did we know each other like close? No.
What about your relationship? Now, I mean, L.A. is a big town, but it's not that big. Undoubtedly, since then and now, you've run into one another, or at least been connected in some way, shape, or form. What is that all about?
We've actually crossed paths like once, and it was really immature. I was still pretty bitter, and, her and her group kind of laughed in my direction, and I screamed, get over yourself, something stupid. But honestly, I've never seen her again, and since then, I have no animosity towards her. I wish her well, support everything. My mom thinks it was a blessing in disguise, that the way things happened by her marrying him and sparing me.
Yeah.
And, at this point in my life, I have no hard feelings because I'm just, without all of these things that have happened, I wouldn't be who I am today. So, I can't be mad.
You're Bobbie Brown. You starred in a music video. You've done other work. You were well known within the rock community, within the Hollywood community, but still had incredibly difficult times, drug abuse, physical abuse, emotional trauma all over the place. There are dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of young women like Bobbie Brown that never even had the opportunity or to be known. Those unwritten stories in L.A., you must feel for those people, and you must know them, I would think, and you must feel pretty empathetic towards all that.
100%, absolutely. Absolutely. I know completely what, the person has to go through, what this town is like, how hard it is, how hard you have to be or become, and, it's really not for everybody. I mean, you have to really come out here with a driven passion that's all your own, unrelentless, and without being distracted, and that's a heavy dose of like dedication, and if you don't have that, then you could end up like I did.
Are you thankful? I gotta believe you're thankful you're not dead.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you have no idea. Like I said, every day now in my life, I'm grateful, and I say how grateful and appreciative I am. And, because not many people get a second chance or an opportunity to come back around and finally accomplish their goals or, be heard or give advice. I mean, I didn't have advice from people when I came out here or support like that. And, God forbid, I'm constantly preaching to anybody I meet if I, meet them. And, I'm always offering advice, whether they ask for it or not. But, I certainly don't ever want to see anybody have to go down the same path if not necessary,
Bobbie, do you believe you hit sort of a rock bottom? Was there such a moment, or did it just sort of come on you over time?
There were numerous moments, because, after all of that notoriety, fame, money, success, and then complete devastation and rock bottom and homeless and living off of people's couches and not a penny to my name and too proud to, want to have to go home or ask my parents for money or just embarrassed, period. There was a long time there where I just really didn't have a purpose or know what I was doing with my life or what to do and how to be something my daughter could be proud of, or, you know what I mean? I didn't feel like I could trust anyone or anybody to turn to because everybody in LA is so, competitive or here for themselves. And, it was a rough time many times, and it wasn't until, after living in regret for so long and being miserable and having, not knowing what I was going to do or where I was going to go the next day or who to trust and all that stuff, that, and just seeing my kid just like be confused. And I just said, this has got to give. This has got to give. Then my dad died. My stepdad died. I couldn't deal with it. You know, I was at home going to school, and that was weird. People were treating me differently because, you know, I was going to school in Louisiana, and they were like, hey, weren't you on that? And I was like, oh, God, like, just didn't know how to feel, you know? And I just said, you know, screw this. After they died, I was like, that's it. I just got in my car, drove out here, and just kind of lived day to day making the decisions, and slowly but surely, you know, got a regular job, and things just kind of happened the way they're supposed to, you know. That normal job got a reality show. They noticed me there. I was not the focus, but then they were like, you know, you need your own show. It just slowly but surely things kind of started to fall into my lap again, and I just went, this was my destiny, clearly, because I wasn't even, you know, chasing it at this point, and here it is again. So I just need to do this and do it well and get it over with, you know. And it was a long time coming. I mean, it's taken me, 20 years? But finally it's happening, and I'm so happy, you know.
Right, and you're starring on the Fuse Network's show, The ExWives of Rock. For those that have not seen it, tell us about it.
ExWives of Rock is, my God, it's like they're my family. It's amazing. It's four ladies that, you know, the four of us, we've known each other for 20 years. We've been friends for 20 years. And so the camaraderie between the four of us is completely genuine. It's unscripted. It's more like a documentary than a reality show because they don't tell us what to do. It's not a scripted show. You know, what you see is real. We don't, you know, starve the audience from any of our reality. If it's embarrassing, if we're making bad decisions, if we are sick, we share that with our audience. And I feel like being real with people, they can relate to that, and that's why it's doing so well, because we are genuine. We personally reach out to all of our fans. We're very dedicated to it, and the show is genuinely like our family, a second family. And, you know, so grateful for that every single day. And these are, you know, four women who have been through a lot and still going through it. And what you see is what you get, and we have genuine love for each other. And that's what I think it totally shows on the show. You can see that when you watch it.
Well, the work is called Dirty Rocker Boys, Love and Lust on the Sunset Strip by Bobbie Brown, well known for her work in the Warrant Cherry Pie video. Also now out in books, published by Simon & Schuster. Bobbie, how can people find out more about Bobbie Brown and get a copy of the book?
Wow, you can get the book pretty much anywhere. It should be out in, you know, Barnes & Noble. You can always order it from Amazon or the Simon & Schuster page. But it should be in every, you know, local bookstore currently. And you know, ExWives of Rock, we're hoping for our third season. We just finished our second season on Fuse and then the Slice Network in Canada. And but the book is pretty much everywhere. And it's a great read. I really think that, you know, anybody that takes the time to read it, it's an easy read. It's not, you know, it's not trying to be something it's not. It's completely honest. I'm very detailed. I'm very self-deprecating. And I wanted to leave the audience with a feeling of peace or joy for me and for others. I give advice. I just want people to have a good feeling when they close the book and be like, oh, you know, that's good. That's a great story. And I'm hoping to do more writing and more books. And I'm also doing the audio version of the book in January, which is kind of cool because I can read my story to people and from my own voice. So that's exciting. And people can go to the ExWives of Rock page on Facebook. Of course, I have my own fan page on Facebook or my Twitter at Bobbie Jean Brown. And you'll always see, you know, me promoting anything that I'm doing on those pages as well.
Well, she's created a cottage industry for herself. I love it. Bobbie Brown, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. A tremendous story. There's humor here. There's behind-the-scenes stuff. There's a little bit under-the-sheet stuff. But ultimately, it's a fascinating story, an interesting read, and there's some depth here for sure. Again, thank you so much, and have a great year.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and thank you for having me on the show.
You bet. We will be back with more right after